Howdy, this is another segment of It Only Happens to Me. I was a limousine driver for a wedding once. It was in Texas, in a little town south of Abilene called Buffalo Gap. It was called that because though most of the area was flat for miles around, Buffalo Gap had some mountains that created a cove where the buffalo would stay and be sheltered from the winter's cold. I was going to school in Abilene, and we befriended a woman named Betty McIntyre, who had a ranch there where she boarded horses and rented them out for trail rides. We learned to saddle horses, and later we would take people out on trail rides ourselves. One day Betty asked me if I would drive a bridal party to a wedding. This being Texas, they wanted a cowboy wedding, so I would be driving a horse and buggy. It was a one-horse open carriage with a front seat and back seat facing each other behind the driver's seat. I would practice a few times a week driving the buggy into town where I would be picking up the bridal party and then to where the small church was where the ceremony would be held. I had learned to start, stop, and steer the horse to where we needed to go with the reins. It was fun. It was like going back in time to the Wild West era. When the day came, a friend of ours lent me a gray tuxedo, and Betty lent me her husband's Stetson hat. I had my own cowboy boots, of course, living in Texas. I started my journey with the photographer riding shotgun up front on the driver's seat with me. We were to travel down the dirt road by the small ranch till we got into town and the paved road started. I had practiced this drive without a hitch. Then it happened. On the dirt road, there was a railroad trestle that went over the road, and as we approached it, for the first time, a train crossed it, right in front of us. The horse, of course, freaked out and backed the buggy into the bank of the side of the road. I quickly handed the reins to the photographer, jumped down, and went to the front of the horse to hold his head and talk him to calm him down. Though the train had passed, the horse was now nervous. His ears were pointed back, afraid. But we were able to proceed. On our way, I felt relieved. We were able to pick up the bride and her 3 bridesmaids, and it seemed like all was going well now. But as we entered the town, the quiet town, there were lots of cars going by. It seemed that the town was having a festival that day. So we went from no traffic practices to a town full of cars whizzing by us. This made the once freaked out horse about the train nervous again. His ears were in freak out position. But we made it to the church all right. I was so relieved. I'd made it. I'd gotten the bridal party there safely. I jumped down to calm the horse and hold his head again so that the bride and her bridal party could climb down from the carriage. Then someone said, "Let's take pictures of each girl before they get off." So each bridesmaid stood up, paused before exiting. Now this was in the 80s, before cell phones. So with each picture snapped, there was a flash, and there were many taking pictures besides the photographer. So there were many flashes, and each one was like a slap to the horse. But I was able to steady him, though there were only 4 in the bridal party, including the bride. As I held the horse's head, it felt like 100. 1 off, 3 to go. I said, "Please hurry." But the second stood up and paused as the first did. More clicks of the camera lenses, more flashes. Then the third. I could feel the horse pulling against me. All I had was a hand on the bridle, and a calming voice, and 150 pounds, versus a freaked out horse and his 900 to 1,200 pounds of strength. Well, after the third bridesmaid got down, it was the bride's turn. As she stood up and paused, the horse slightly backed up, and she almost lost her balance. She cried out, "Frank!" And I cried out, "Please, hurry!" I pictured in my mind the newspaper the next day. Bridal party, driver loses bride. I tugged tightly on the horse's bridle and steadied him once more. The bride finally got off. After many more clicks and flashes, then the horse had had enough. Then he backed into a tree. That was my cue. I told somebody, "I'm getting this horse out of here." I got in the buggy and got us out of there and drove us down some quiet streets. Betty found me and I told her what had happened. So the original plan was for the bride and groom to drive off in the buggy after the ceremony. That was changed to them going out to the ranch and taking pictures of them driving the buggy off into the sunset there. So that's the story, how the bride, the bridesmaids, me, the horse, and photographer survived this ordeal.